Survival horror games manipulate players through their use of music and sound design to convey a range of atmospheres and engage players through deep emotional connections to the terrifying environment. The use of Moonlight Sonata in the highly influential psychological horror Resident Evil is a great example of an already atmospheric piece created by Beethoven that was in use in the game to enhance the mood of the seemingly abandoned mansion you were forced to make your way through. Another great example of audio influencing the game's fear factor would be in Resident Evil 3, when you would walk or load into a room or hallway, and before you can do anything, the first thing you hear is "stars" in a menacing voice. Strategy such as this would play more on immersion than on shock tactics, in a mentally disturbing manner. The room could be well lit and look somewhat welcoming, however, the sound of this voice would instantly instill an unbearable sense of terror, simply because of the association that this voice had with the super tyrant called Nemesis, who was an enemy who would follow you throughout the game, hunting you down and killing you whenever it could. These ideas of sound and music play a key part in creating the atmosphere in Gone Home, the game that we'll be looking at today. The game boasts the typical horror quirks that you find in staple games of the horror genre, such as the creaky floorboards and the torrential downpours. Gone Home also has low music that works with the occasional sound effect that makes it seem like something scary is around every corner. Similarly to a game like Resident Evil 7, the game has recordings that pop up at random times and always make me personally jump out of my skin. In this game, you can click to play a very select few recordings, but they leave you very confused and even more scared.
Sam, where are you? Really? I need to talk to you. Please be there.
Gone Home also plays recordings of Katie's sister, Sam. She doesn't exactly tell you what's going on, but instead she tells you about her life as Katie has been away traveling. This is very typical for Western-based horror video games. The player is often given parts of the story as clues as they progress, and are left to fill in the blanks. The use of music, sound, and atmosphere helps the player to understand and interpret these clues laid out in the game. For example, when the player finds an important clue or nears an area that is important to the storyline, the music often swells to a crescendo to notify the player of its importance. Not only do sound and music have a major influence on a horror game's effectiveness to scare a player, imagery is also a major contributor to this effect. Gone Home boasts a large amount of flickering lights and strange shadows. In most horror games, dimly lit rooms causing shadows or a smearing of blood on walls can make a player pause and possibly think twice before entering a new setting. A great example of ambiance and shadow puppetry would be in Alien Isolation. Throughout the whole game, you are doing your best to stay away from the antagonist, which in this case is the alien from the Ridley Scott films, a menacing, biomechanical-looking creature that hunts and kills with no discretion. In the game, you are making your way through the spaceship and doing everything you can to avoid any confrontation with this beast. When peeking into a room or a tunnel, sometimes you can see the shadow of this creature projected on the walls due to some wires sparking or a strategically placed light which strikes fear into the player. Gone Home also relies heavily on secret passageways. There are many throughout the old house that lead to old forgotten rooms, the basement, or work as shortcuts to other areas of the house. These areas are often untouched, only used by Sam and her friend Lonnie, so they are full of old newspapers and gross cobwebs. Since Katie doesn't know where they lead, and the doors open slowly like in Resident Evil 7, it aids in the creation of an eerie atmosphere. Storytelling plays another major factor in a horror game. Telling a backstory before the game starts, in the opening credits, or even during the game's progression adds a bit more depth to the feel of the game. A survival horror game is one in which the hero or heroine investigates a hostile environment where he or she will be trapped in order to either uncover the causes of the strange and horrible events or to rescue a loved one from an evil force. At the beginning of Silent Hill, the main character narrates the reason for him going to the town to look for his missing adopted daughter. That leads you into the game with a sense of mystery and questions you feel the need to solve. Confusing the players through the use of audio-visual interactions has always been a key element to the Silent Hill games, and it is what makes them so successful and truly terrifying. The most frightening enemy is the one that remains unseen, relying on the resultant madness and fear concocted in the minds of players. Resident Evil 7 also follows this idea of narration. The story begins with Ethan talking to someone about going to look for his wife, who he hasn't seen in over 3 years, in an isolated and mysterious place.
Mia. She's not dead, she's alive. She's back.
They found her? How? What happened?
I don't know. Look, I don't know how, but she's back. She's back somehow. Maybe it's a prank, but she wants me to come and get her.
Where is she?
Dulvey, Louisiana.
Dude, it's been 3 years.
I know, but what if it is her? I have to find out what happened.
Similarly to the introduction of Silent Hill and Resident Evil 7, Gone Home starts with the protagonist, Katie, narrating her trip home to see her family. She calls her parents and gets no answer, but leaves a message telling them that she'll meet them at the house. This fits with the survival horror idea as the game follows Katie through her new house, which seems to be haunted, in a frantic search for her missing family. The game opens up with all the typical horror stereotypes, but turns into something different. Though Gone Home itself is not a horror game in the traditional sense, it gives the player an ominous feeling while going through the empty house and interacting with objects. For Katie, someone that's just returned from a year-long trip to Europe, one would expect their family to be present or at least home when they return. However, you learn that your parents have left for a couples counseling retreat and that your sister Sam is nowhere to be found. Reading journals and scraps of paper left around the house is a necessity for the player to get a better picture of what Sam was going through the entire time that Katie was gone. As a psychological thriller, this game emphasizes the necessity and vitality of music and sound effects on the immersive atmosphere essential for any game in the survival horror genre. Gone Home also shows that by using these same concepts, one can create a game that transcends different genres and allows developers to create a game that pushes boundaries and mystifies players until they actually play through the entire game and uncover the story.